Good evening. I believe I have the pleasure of joining you all here. In fact, let's just move my microphone stand because it's really blocking everyone in the chat. Hello, while my voice bounces around. Good evening. It's Rail Natter. It's episode 213. We're talking about, as you'll see, in a change to the previously advertised schedule. Labour decided to launch their they decided to launch their plans for the railways. Plans in potentially in heavy air quotes here, called Getting Britain Moving. Plan to, and I again use heavy rabbit ears here, nationalise rail. So let's see what does that mean? What does it look like? What's going on? Is the plan any good? What the hell are we talking about? Let's find out. Yes, so there she is, Louise Haig, announcing these plans. I think first and foremost, I want to just, before we get into the episode, before we even start the episode, I just want to first and foremost say it is very impressive that this has survived the Reeves-Starmer continuum. That this proposal, and indeed the word nationalisation, has managed to stick with something and continue is worth commenting on and addressing. That is, in and of itself, impressive. We'll maybe discuss what the plans actually mean for the future. But let's just open with that. It's very impressive. Whether it actually continues to exist or whether it's actually meaningful, we'll get into. But I just wanted to open with that. Anyway, let's get stuck in. We're going to try and keep this into a tidy hour. So without further ado, everyone, welcome to tonight's Rail Natter. And as the Intercity 225 fades away, Manome, forgive me if I have not pronounced that correctly, is new. It was joining us live for the first time and has got exactly the right idea, which is they've opened the PDF ready to follow along. If you can do that, absolutely do that. So yeah, let's see what happens. Let's see what's going on. Talking of which, we have to start, however, first with the news. May Manchester get its underground station? Well, possibly? No, probably not. But there has been some... Hugh Merriman, the rail minister, whose role is purely ceremonial, I'm afraid, has been writing to the leadership of the Greater Manchester, and on behalf of the DFT, saying, look, we know what you've been saying and we welcome your comments, and yes, we are going to propose to do a kind of a more substantial new line between Manchester and Liverpool via the airport, yada yada yada. This is fine, good. Whatever. The bit that's been highlighted is this bit here. I don't know. Yeah, there's no point in me having me whack him. This paragraph here, because I acknowledge your strong preference for an underground through station solution at Manchester Piccadilly. As announced, I can confirm that we are willing to look at the potential for such a station as part of the next phase of work once the high-level route strategy for NPR between Liverpool and Manchester is agreed. So there we go. There's some potential thoughts on potential hope, a sliver of hope. Let's say, a sliver of hope. Daniel Smith, the Green Signals podcast interview with Hugh Merriman was actually a good watch. Yeah, Green Signals. We don't talk much about Green Signals, do we? Hello, shout out to Nigel and to Richard. There's loads of good stuff in there. Obviously, it's a much more Richard and Nigel have a rather more establishmentarian view of the railways than I do. But they do get, because they're because it's the two of them and they're well embedded. They do snag the interviews that I'm more unlikely to hear. Although we got Alex Hines, who's now the boss of DFT Rail, so we've worked there. But anyway, there may be a crossover, of course, but we'll see. They definitely didn't steal the fact that I have Rail Natter. They definitely didn't steal it as an idea and run with it and have a production budget, which I do not as well. They definitely didn't do that. It's fine. Neither did Christian Walmar when he also copied Rail Natter when he started his podcast. So yeah, it's fine. Copycats, definitely, that's fine. There's plenty of room for all of us. No worries. Yeah. Anyway, may Manchester get its underground station? Anyway, yeah, there we go. No, probably not. certainly not under this government, and very probably not under the next government. Direct services reversal, right? This is interesting. This is the fact that LNE are scrapping their direct London to Sunderland service. This is probably a good thing. Like, direct services aren't necessarily a very good idea. Other than, the challenge with these is that they use up a path. They can be useful as part of delivering, a additional capacity along a core route that then branches out. It depends kind of what they're running in amongst. So, if they're running in amongst, so for example, the direct service to Harrogate results in, I think, 3 Leeds service paths being lost, possibly more than that. Like, these services wipe out because of the way they work, because of their dwell times at stations and their turnaround times. If they're terminating at Sunderland, they're using a platform up for ages while they get turned around. They're actually really bad for capacity, particularly at stations not designed to cope with them. So this is not necessarily a bad thing. What it is about is the lack of capacity. It does relate to the lack of capacity on the East Coast mainland. There are severe problems on the East Coast mainland at the moment. This is a key serious chance. By the way, a reminder for everyone, there's lots of great hello to all the lovely new people in the chat. Charles J. Lockett, first time live listener to hello Charles. Lots of lovely people joining. Just a reminder, if you @ my name, it pops up in red in the chat. Actually, you know what, let's briefly right, I'm bringing Big Face up. Hello, it's Big Face. Hello everyone. 2 things I want to say about about the chat. Firstly, if you @ my name, it appears in red. It makes it easier for me to spot. If you're pointing a comment at me, it's easier for me to spot it. Second thing, there are now other features, super chats. I don't know what that is. It's a bit of a Twitch thing that YouTube have tried to copy. But if you people can do a super chat. They can do a super chat, and that super chat will shout at me. I don't know what it does, but someone in the chat asked me to do that. Hello Bluebird, first time listeners. Look, all these first time. Hello all the first time listeners. It's interactive. You might wonder what is different. Why is this? It's just a guy. Is this Paul Joseph Watson with a map behind him, just ranting and railing into a camera angrily? No, because you're here and it's interactive, and I'm not a right. Hello, you can chat to me. We have the technology. Manuel is saying, is this an LNER red or good question. So, people are saying, remember there are a couple of Liverpool to Manchester routes. Yeah, all of them very clogged up. Piotr is in the chat as well. Hello everyone. Super chat means the person pays an amount plus VAT, which gets paid to me, less fees, of course. Yeah, there's that. Some people are saying, don't worry, don't mind the copycats. They don't provide the secret sauce that RailNet does. There's room for great takes and not so great takes in the rail chat space. Yeah, exactly. And there's good stuff. They're interesting interviews. I don't have time to catch up with Green Signals. I'm sure they do some really interesting interviews. There was one recently that I'm sure was very interesting with an ex-Treasury, ex-DFT guy that I'm sure would be very interesting. It was the sound chopping. It shouldn't be chopping my end. I'm sorry if it is. Tell everyone, shout at me if the sound's going in and out. Oh, that's weird. Oh, let me give it. If I give this a wiggle, is it going to make a difference? How's that? Is that better? Rubbish. Anyway, right. As you can see, a highly professional outfit. Let's get rid of my face and continue with the news and hope that the sound continues. I've not changed anything. Everything should be fine. So. It's better to just do the Patreon. Richard, I agree. I'm not expecting people to do the super chat thing, but it doesn't cause me any problems to include it, and someone asked for it, so I thought I would. Anyway, right. This is an interesting one. Adam Reynolds here picking up that DFT they've completed their managing pavement parking report. It's been prepared for release, and then apparently sat on. So there are draft versions that have been asked about. But it seems that they've prepared it ready for submission, and it seems to have disappeared. I wonder if it's because it says something that doesn't match with the I wonder if it doesn't match with the current prevailing attitudes towards the plan for drivers. Yeah, David Frankel's got it right. It doesn't quite fall under the plan for drivers ? Yeah, well, quite. Let's talk about a little gadget ban for, or is it even a gadget ban? I don't know what it is. It's rubbish is what it is. It's steel on steel, so I'm fascinated to know how this one categorises itself in the not a metro sorter. But there's this thing, this little, what's it called, a monocab. Let's get some other pictures of what it is. It's a German. It's being tested in Germany on a single rail of a railway. Let's get some other pictures of the thing. I have questions. So here is in action, and here are the two things passing on a single railway line. So it's a way to make a lightly used railway line have a passing service on it that might actually function. I have questions, several questions. First question. Here's the thing mocked up, but you can see, if you look very closely, it is sat on stilts, allowing it to be supported. Okay, noted. Second query. Here is the stand that allows it to be supported in its runs. I presume for testing, but also, like, I've not seen any pictures of it running that don't include this. So if this stabilizer is part of how it runs, how is this happening? So I'm going to give this a giant nope. This is a big gadget band nope. Just run a normal. And the other thing is like it carries like 2 or 3 people. So it's just, we're running cars on a railway. It's not a good idea. Just run a normal rail service. Like if this is if the capacity of the system is, or if the ridership on the system only merits that enough capacity that these are viable, then it should be a bus service, not a railway anyway. And the chances are that's never the case. There's always enough people wanting to take the train that you can justify having an actual railway service. This not good. It's rubbish. Not a fan. Right. Oh, this is it. Darren Jones MP. So Labour are kind of imploding a little bit in Bristol because there's a reasonable likelihood they're going to get rollicked and that the Green Party are going to lose Brighton and gain at least 1 MP in Bristol. As a result of that, the response, of course, from Labour has not been go from why is my brain? So someone shouted at me, probably rightly for this in the last episode, from getting too distracted from the chat. But I always enjoy the chat is what keeps things alive. But I should focus on what I'm talking about. I'm particularly tired at the moment, so that never helps my ADHD brain darting around all over the place. You won't get that on green signals. ADHD, that is. Anyway, Labour have, rather than going, oh yeah, no, we're gonna do good policies that steal some Green members back. No, they've gone, oh, we've lost them. We're never going to get them back. We don't care about those voters. We're going to move rightwards. And so they've gone, are the Green Party going to expand the clean air zone, extend the clean air zone in Bristol? Where is it going to be included? So, yeah, great work to Labour, who are apparently now against clean air. So, yeah, tremendous work all around. Fantastic. Okay, so Louise Haigh, Labour announced their plans for rail nationalisation, rabbit ears. And then someone suggested Rail Britannia as a name, which is obviously on a number of levels deeply stupid and problematic. Louise is having a bit of fun with it. I mean, I'm in two minds about this. Like, okay, a bit of fun is fine. But also, I wish people would take the rail industry seriously, because we've been not taken seriously for an awfully long time now, and the joke has worn thin. Anyway, so there's I don't know what these are the final results, actually. I hadn't even looked. Final results are that people decided they were going to go for Rail Britannia rather than Great British Railways, of about 20,000 voters. So, okay, fine. That's only because everyone hates Great British Railways. Of course, the third option here, no one was voting for this, but everyone was liking it. So, read from that what you will, viewers. Read from that what you will. Anyway, more interestingly, or perhaps less interestingly, the More in Common did some polling, admittedly with a pretty small sample size of, but a reasonably representative selection. And this is the names that people want the kind of the new system to be, the new rail company to be called. The first one is National Rail Service. That's not, people don't want it to be called National. That's people thinking that this is National Rail. So like, oh, just call it National Rail. That's a stupid name. Don't call it National Rail. Second, and only 1 point behind in percentage terms, is British Rail. So people want the railway company to be called British Rail. We all knew this. The first one is I'm just discounting it for being a shit idea. Sorry, that should be a shit idea. There we go. See, I did really well on my beep there. You like that? Anyway, Great British Rail. Also, what's funny is this has actually compressed the name, because it's not great. GBR has never been on the cards. It's always been GB Rail has never been on the cards. It's always been Great British Railways. So this isn't even the actual name, which is quite funny. Talking of which, we should get on and talk about the plan, shouldn't we? Because I welcome the plan, and I would call on it to not go further. Yeah, okay, Keir. It's me. Hello. I don't know why I just put big face on. No, it's me in the corner, because we need to talk about Labour's plan. Here's Keir. And here's Louise. Louise from Sheffield. Keir is the Camden MP. So he's not a fan of HS2 because of what it's done around Euston. Anyway, so let's talk about it. We're here to talk about this plan. I've been waffling for 60 minutes. Very, very brief callback to episode 190 where we talked about kind of what should happen next. So this is a useful episode and like what the sequence of things that needs to happen are. And we're going to kind of compare the Labour plans against what we said needs to happen in this one. So key things of those being, the number one thing was set the structure. That's the number one thing, is set the structure. Fine. And they're doing that. We may not like the final structure, but they are setting the structure. Setting the mission. Now, there is a very brief mention of what the mission needs to be, but it's very brief. It's not front and center. And so I've previously said they haven't bothered to write about this. They have actually. I've found it in the report. Now I've flicked through it a bit more in detail. They do mention it. It's just not prominent enough, but it is mentioned. Setting the timeline to deliver that mission is not mentioned at all. So, well, or is it? We'll find out. I don't know. Let's read through it. Setting the funding, we'll find out if that. So key things: set structure, set mission, set timeline, set funding, and then step out of the way. So government needs to step back and let the railway industry, whatever shape it is, get on with delivering that mission. Let's see if that mission is actually going to be delivered. Let me also see if I can just do this with them. If I do that. Is that better? That might be a bit better because I can now see the chat, and this thing's been slowly rotating. Is the sound? Can someone tell me if the sound's been fine? Do some thumbs in the chat, thumbs in the chat, or hearts in the chat, whatever is easier. Hearts in the chat if my sound's been a bit more consistent now. Right. So within that, we talked about what the ideal structure would be, which is having an overall organisation that is just a direct inheritor of Network Rail. So Network Rail just changes its name. A massive reduction in the number of suppliers, so massively insourcing loads of stuff into that organisation is really key. That's a really key thing. Leaving the devolved railways as they are. Let Wales and Scotland decide exactly what they want to do with their railways. Just leave them to it for the most part. Running all the services outside of the city regions under either the intercity or the regional brand. Fine, and this regional brand might well be varied based on subnational transport bodies. So we've kind of discussed that yes, there'll be a regional brand, but actually it might well be that changes between subnational transport. But I think I'm warm to the idea of there just being regional, just being a regional sort of branding, and in city branding. Fine. Key thing, absolutely critical thing, is retain and indeed grow the number of city region dedicated operators. So there need to be dedicated operators, and these should be ideally not necessarily actually rail, but they should be part of an integrated transport system. I think Birmingham, the West Midlands, the wider West Midlands system has kind of got the right idea. We talked about their branding and their system before. I think it's really very good. Tyne Metro, well, Transport North East as it was and is possibly going to be changed again. Whatever that ends up looking like needs to be integrated. Merseyrail isn't hugely integrated because they don't have buses or anything. Manchester's working on it, so that's obviously progress. Leeds, West Yorkshire, absolute hopeless. Right off, and South Yorkshire. Actually, they've changed this now. This is gone. I need to update it. They've changed it to something else. So anyway, so the urban city, the city regions need to have their own dedicated transport systems that they have control over to a greater or lesser extent. We'll pick into that in a second. Goodbye to the open access operators. The open access operators, actually, I don't say this in that episode. I've updated this slightly. Open access operators are gone. The only open access operator that we need to retain is Eurostar. All the rest can go to hell, including Heathrow Express. We create a nationalised freight operator that we already have one, which is DRS, but we change it to integrate it into the brand so that there is visibility of the brand for freight. And it can also do some of the stuff that the other private operators don't. But you know what? Leave the private freight operators as they are. That's fine. Leave them to it. Get rid of the Roscoes. The Roscoes need to go. Desperately need to disappear. No more Roscoes. Ended. And then people have challenged me on this. So what happens to all these? Well, what happens to safety regulation? Well, safety regulator, currently HMRI, for example, is within the RR. HMRI can be, it can become its own thing, separate as it has been in the past, or it can be part of DFT, or it can be part of BR, or it can be entirely self. Fine, whatever. RSSB just needs to be integrated into BR. Ukraine needs to be integrated into BR as a research division within BR. The Railway Delivery Group just needs to be yeeted into the sun, and the Rail Ombudsman kind of doesn't necessarily. Again, that doesn't need to be independent. It doesn't actually need to be independent if BR is empowered suitably as an organisation with the right incentives. If the incentives aren't cut costs, their incentives are modal shift, then actually you can create a situation where you don't need the rail ombudsman as it currently stands. But again, that facility could you could retain that. I'm not. It's not a hill I'm willing to die on, and the retention of elements of ORR and elements of rail ombudsman, fine, willing to discuss those. Anyway. So Corrot's going, Eurostar isn't UK government owned, but it doesn't make them open access. No, Eurostar is classed as an open access operator. It's legally and its structure. It is an open access operator. How about banning open access except on HS1? Well, essentially, yeah. So there can be other operators running on HS1 into St Pancras. Fine, that requires you to fix St Pancras first. But anyway, so that's the structure. Key things is city regions. This is a key part of any plan, needs to empower the city regions and their transport systems. We've got gaps in Solent, we've got gaps in East Midlands. There are the combined authorities around that do or do not have their own transport systems. Obviously, London's a bit of a hybrid between being a city region and being a wider kind of broader kind of region as well. So let's see, and whatever's going on in the northeast, there's obviously change. Go back to the episode. So city regions, very important. The point being that and this is something that you can explicitly say in a plan, is that the city regions should have the power to do whatever they want to do, whether it's own and operate a complete self-contained rail system, run services using their own trains on BR infrastructure, run services using BR trains and infrastructure, or just put their stickers on the side of the BR services that run as BR services entirely. Whatever they want to do, they can do it. Some cities will feel like, Manchester and the West Midlands might feel like they can run the whole thing themselves. Manchester might feel like they can have the whole thing segregated. London, for example. But other cities might not have the resources to do it. The North East might not want to do that to start with. So anyway, and the other thing is the mission. And we know the mission because multiple sources have talked about what modal shift needs to be, not least the TUC. So we kind of understand that mission. So let's dig into the report. I've been dithering for long enough. It's 20 past. At least it's not half past. It's 20 past. We're going to click on capture the cursor. So I've got my cursor now. So you can now see the cursor wibbling around. So there's lots of. I tell you what. Before we do that, let's go big face because there's loads of chat going on. So let's pick up the chat. Let's see. Thai Pizza Lord. Is that Thai Pizza Lord? I'm not sure. Familiar, regular visitor to the show. I've heard that only the new trains should be bought from the Roscoes, though. No point buying 20+ year old DMUs. Possibly, although, arguably those DMUs are nice and cheap. Yeah, that's a fair point. You could keep the old trains running and just buy the new ones. Fine. CNER wants to know what I'd like is how does this plan interact with the devolved governments? Also, ADHD Solidarity recently diagnosed. Shout out, yeah. Let's see. So other chat. Always at my name, and then I can pick out the comments. Fine. Howard Meow is saying the open access only on HS1, but no new licenses for operators other than Eurostar due to capacity. Well, quite. Lewis Bergen is saying, can we also recognise that as an integral part of the business, ticket agent like Trainline and TrainPal also count as part of those who need to be yeeted, especially Trainline. Yeah, Trainline. Well, either you eat Trainline or you build a dedicated ticketing system that renders them entirely obsolete, one or the other. Fine. Yeah, rigor mortis is right. Roll ORR and ombudsman into a single thing if you want to keep an independent element. Depends on it does depend on materially how BR works. Like my structure thing there masks a lot of additional complexity and the story quite substantially. Let's see. IBUS London. While Labour has not directly said it, I do wonder if trains will be bought by GBR on future orders and then diminishing the need for the Roscoes. That is one way to do it. That is one way to do it. And I'm spoiler alert, I'm going to be critical of the decision about the Roscoes. But I can understand politically why that decision's been made. Manome is saying, what Roscoe in their right mind would want paces anyway? Well, quite. And Memnonia is saying, Bristol and region always seems to lose out in terms of B network S plans. Any ideas why? Political. I think often it's about political expedience. So Labour heartland things are often challenged, but also I think Bristol particularly suffers from a very left-wing core and then a very right-wing kind of urban surrounding. So there's always conflict as to what that devolution might look like. So hence why they've not actually managed to assemble this. Anyway, right. So enough of my face and enough of what's going on there. Let us get to the plan. let's get my miniaturized face in the corner and let's talk about the plan. So, getting Britain moving. Labour's plan to fix Britain's railways. Let's have a look, shall we? So, we're going to start by this page that says mission-driven government. It talks about 5 missions here, which are the missions of the Labour Party, right? So these missions are get Britain building again. Okay. And this is how it's saying how transport fits into these 5, I suppose. Ensuring reliable, affordable, and accessible transport, which works for fine, whatever. Mission 2, switch on Great British Energy. That'll move to less dependence on that. Fine, whatever. Okay. Getting the NHS back on its feet. We're talking about fossil fuels. Fine. Getting the NHS back on its feet. Accessible transport. Key workers essential. Fine. Good. I'm glad that you know what? I am actually glad of this page. It is good that they've thought about the fact that transport impacts on everything. Take back our streets. Ensuring our roads and railways, buses and transport interchanges are safe will help make our streets safe. Okay, tenuous. There could be more to it than that. Oh yeah, take back our streets is like who we. I hate this one. By the way, I don't like the missions. I think they're crap. I think the missions are crap. By the way, and the 4th one is the borderline fascism one. Who are we taking back our streets from? Hoodies. It's very New Labour. And mission 5 is break down barriers to opportunity. Well, whatever. I noticed that none of these are. And there's the switch on Great British Energy. None of them are reduce the UK's greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, well, fine anyway. But there are the missions. So mission-driven government. Are we going to have a mission-driven plan? Bearing in mind what I've said, mission-driven plan. George Turner has a very nice little fact here, which is 1 in 20 car journeys relate to the NHS. Absolutely marvellous. I should have put that in the book. Anyway. Right, so there's a forward. Are we going to ignore the forward? You know what? We always ignore the forward, and Louise, there's no disrespect to you, we're going to ignore the forward, although there's a nice picture of you inside what's probably an East Midlands Railway aubergine train. So there's the forward, and we're going to just we're going to not pay attention to the forward, because although the context is the political context is often important, and Louise's words are important, Louise isn't the one who's going to be in control of this. So Louise will have fantastic words there, I'm sure. And it's a bit of, while I kind of dwell on that, there's a bit of a theme in here. So I have read through this a few times now. And the theme is that a lot of what's being said in this plan is good. There are shortcomings in how it's I think there are major shortcomings, in fact, in what's being proposed, but there's nothing particularly offensive in here. There's nothing that actively makes me angry in here. And there's a lot of good words. There's a lot of good stuff. There's no mention of AI, which is good. The sorts of there's some limited talk about innovation, technology, but nothing. Yeah, nothing. None of the big red flags that you'd expect to see. There are some other big red flags. We'll get to them, but lots of good words. The trouble is, when you strip this back, when you strip away all the good words and look at what's actually been materially proposed, this is where the challenge comes out. And I'm just going to let you think about this and try and remember back to when we talked about what government is actually proposing to do. And indeed, as recently as the Great British Railways Legal Act sort of thing, talking about what they're planning to do compared to this. And you realise that the two proposals are remarkably similar. The only difference really between the two proposals is that the Conservatives aren't explicitly saying they're going to run national operators, but the way that the industry is going, it's very likely that will happen anyway. Labour are guaranteeing that it'll happen, allegedly. So there is a step ahead there, but broadly, the same result will end up happening. So this is, it's an important thing to just have that in the back of your mind. So, State of Britain's Railways, we do not need to dwell on this. We know the State of Britain's Railways very well, so skip. Okay, let's just talk the headlines. So, impact on economy, fine. Services failing passengers, fine. Failure is increasing costs, yep. Inertia is constraining innovation for passengers. Lack of strategic direction, yes, I agree with that. Fragmentation is hampering coordination, yes, absolutely it is. Government micromanagement is stifling services, yes, absolutely correct. Legal and regulatory frameworks are limiting change. Yes, agree with that, because it's set up for privatisations causing problems and headaches, as is the internal structure of DfT, incidentally. Workforce and productivity declining. Oh, the number of people yeah, absolutely. So skills shortage stuff, fine, yes. Financial position is weakening, true. Lack of a long-term strategy is hindering progress, absolutely true as well. Yes, that's critically true. So they are doing a reasonable job of highlighting the problem here. In fact, a good job of highlighting the problem. They missed one, though, which is, just check that it's here, nothing about lack of investment. Okay, noted. Note that. Put that down in your copybooks. Orbital cord mentioned. Yeah, they do mention the fact the orbital cord was built but wasn't any good. Yeah, they do actually do that. So Labour's vision for passengers. Let's just say this document is very passenger focused. In a way, I can understand that because this is a document facing the electorate. It's not necessarily industry facing, it's electorate facing. So they are going to talk more about passengers, and there is actually some stuff about freight in here, although it's reasonably weak. So actually, it's always easy to criticize these sorts of documents for not mentioning freight enough. I think in this situation, it's understandable. It's an electorate facing, therefore a passenger facing document. Really, this one. Yeah, so Labour's vision for passengers. Okay, fine. So there's all this stuff that passengers should see and understand all this stuff. And I am going to whiz through quite a lot of this because, again, it's kind of not so critical to the deep-rooted stuff that I think is important for us to talk about. All this stuff is kind of like, well, yeah, this is just what any rail industry in the future is going to deliver. And in a way, a lot of this is already. So I don't, if you want to pick up on any of it, at me, but I don't think any of that particularly is relevant or useful. So this is the kind of the list of plan. It's funny actually. This looks remarkably familiar, particularly with the red text. It looks remarkably familiar to the bus plan, Wales bus plan we were looking at the other day, a week ago. So they want more reliable services. Well, yeah, everyone does. So within this plan, are they mentioning infrastructure upgrades to deliver it? Unified system will deliver, an achievable, reliable timetable. Ensure the network is able to deliver it. Better coordinated timetable and engineering works. Okay. But, you're going to invest in expanding the infrastructure, or maybe they're going to talk about that in the next point, to make services cheaper. Simplifying the ticketing system and making them more affordable. Okay. But, of course, the way we make the tickets more affordable is by expanding capacity massively. So, obviously, they're going to talk about that. Oh, no. Just stuff about digital season tickets and pay-as-you-go. Oh, right. Well, okay. So, integrated efficient services are going to talk about capacity expansion, surely. Incidentally, this bit's really good. With our railways unified under a single directing mind and brand, it'll be more straightforward. Whoa, red flag. Whoa, I presume you mean apart from the devolved cities and Wales and Scotland there. Okay. Anyway, it'll be more straightforward to integrate the railways with other forms of transport. Good. Yep, like that for the most part, other than the devolution issue. In Switzerland, for example, timetabling is carefully coordinated across different modes of transport, allowing according to an hourly rhythm of services, which is easy to understand, navigate, and rely upon. You know what's interesting is that, so I was much more embedded within the Labour transport team prior to the previous general election, and the main guy, the main wonk they had, the kind of wonk side, boffin side rather than SPAD side, their main wonk, policy wonk, was absolute tact. A Britain tact was very much fundamentally part of the long-term transport plan, which was really good stuff. And I was very disappointed when that seemed to have disappeared. So the fact that it's kind of being alluded to suggests that there is still some connection with that within the expertise that Labour is dipping into, which is good. That's good, actually. By a single body, the publicly owned Federal Railway SBB. Fine. This model is viewed as world-leading, has led to both significant passenger growth and increased workforce productivity. Absolutely spot on and true. Have they talked about the fact that it also required significant investment and that Switzerland invests more even than the UK per capita than on its railways to deliver that? No. Okay. Well, surely improved service quality, investment. Quality service, clean, comfortable, functioning toilets, power sockets. Okay, so business as usual, whatever. Okay, accessible services. So massive investment required for accessibility. Labour will take advantage of the benefits of a unified network to deliver a more reliable and consistent experience for passengers with accessibility, and will also use the ability to plan across the whole rail network to better target investment. Okay, investment. We've heard the word investment mentioned. Investment klaxon sounds. To raise accessibility standards across the board and give local authorities, wait a minute, better target investment. So we're not increasing investment, right? And give local authorities more control over their transport networks to better consider accessibility needs for door-to-door journeys. Right. Safe services, improve rail safety through seamless, reliable timetabling, better integration with other modes of transport to reduce waiting times between connections, and working with police on staffing where there could be safety issues. We'll also seek to accelerate, target, and better standardise the deployment of technologies across the network to enhance safety, promote reporting of crimes, and ensure evidence is recorded. This is the new Labour bit where they want us all to be cops. Yeah, okay. So if we go back to last week's episode, rightly, TFW talked about the fact that safety is something that does impact the marginalised groups, particularly LGBTQ plus people. Queer folk are disproportionately impacted by attacks, assaults on public transport, and so there is that absolutely safety is an important part. I don't want to dismiss this, but deployment of technologies, it's getting very much into trash future kind of territory there. Facial recognition cameras and all those sorts of dangerous bad things. Oh, golly. Nooker is saying, on Good Morning Britain, Louise Haig did say that mayors of devolved regions would get statutory roles. Yeah, that does get mentioned in here, I think. So that there is a value in there. Absolutely, yes. No commitment to level boarding, Manome as well. Yes, level boarding not mentioned. Yeah, I suppose they don't want to, I don't know. They should just say level boarding. There should be an explicit statement that says we will deliver level boarding on the network by this. We will set up a plan to deliver level boarding across the network. Simple, unaccountable sentence that they could say, and we're going to deliver that plan, and it says we'll do it by 2085. They could have said that. They could have just said it and said they're going to deliver it, but they can't even commit to that. There we go. Fine. So, right, let me go. Queer folk are also disproportionately impacted by Labour policy. Oh, God, yes, they are. Yeah, absolutely they are. Yes, fine. So, good stuff. Oh, there's all sorts of good chat going on there. Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I'm just going to... That's a very good point, actually. Labour don't deserve your vote because of... let's just put this plan to one side, because we're discussing this plan because this is likely to be the plan that gets followed for our rail network after the next general election. I'm just going to say right now, you shouldn't be voting Labour while they currently have their policies again, pretty much explicitly targeting trans people, the trans community. You should not vote for Labour. Find another party to vote for that will express a left-wing or a progressive voting position. But Labour, we need to hit them. The ideal situation is very unlikely. The ideal situation is a minority Labour government where they have to make compromise. Ideally, they would make that compromise with the Greens and in some instances the Lib Dems. But just going to explicitly say that now. Just for the nearly 200 people now watching this, just going to explicitly say that Labour is a transphobic party. They are, Wes Streeting's comments in the aftermath of the Cash report, the Cash review. Nothing new from him, by the way, but they were absolutely appalling, dismal comments. Transphobic, bigoted comments, appealing specifically to right-wing nasties, and that's not a party that are going to get my vote anytime soon. I'll let you make your judgments. But anyway, so, right, here we go. So, Labour's plan for urgent action. So, resolving many of the issues identified. What are they going to do instantly? So, good stuff. Okay, right, what we're going to see here. Make improvements from day one. DFT, OLR Holdings, so that's the LNER, Northern TPE now, and any others in there? I can't remember. Anyway, and Network Rail will be instructed to work closely together from day one of a Labour government on getting the basics right. Fine, okay. Oh, so that looks distinctly less... a newly appointed leadership team for a shadow Great British Railways. Well, there's already one of those. It's called GBRTT. So we're going to have the GBRTT and shadow Great British Railways. Oh, God. Beginning to bring decisions together and tasked by the Secretary of State with delivering improvements. Okay, fine. So all of that actually is a bit of waffle. It's not. The thing is that there is an incentive there. If the government is saying do this, then it will happen. The reason GBRTT has done nothing and is just paying a lot of people lots of nice money is that they haven't been told to do it. They haven't been told to do anything. The government has said that there is so much overlap of route knowledge on Northern LNR and TP. Yeah, absolutely. Southeastern is also in DOHL. Thank you, Howard. Thank you very much indeed. Southeastern. Everyone's saying Southeastern. Yeah. Fine. Right, okay, let's keep going on. So, establishing... Oh, everyone's saying except in London tomorrow. I don't know. If I was in London right now, I have to say, would not be voting for Sadiq. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because local elections, the mayoral elections should be... supplementary vote or it's not alternative vote, whatever the preferential vote system. So basically, it's not first past the post. Except it is now. They got rid. The government went, oh no, but that keeps delivering us representative results. No. We want first past the post. So it is now first past the post. So it's so lots of people are getting stressed that we really do want to make sure that Sadiq gets in versus the other one. I don't know. I have to say, I certainly would not be voting Sadiq. If the Labour Party is going to do what the Labour Party is doing, then the Labour Party is going to have to, they're at the round phase, and now they're at the find out phase of their bad social policy. Anyway, right, okay, so none of this is hugely interesting or useful, I have to say. Establishing the shadow direct in mind. Well, GBRTT, so building on the work already undertaken by the Great British Railways transition team. So it's like the turning, so it's like we're going from the transition team to the shadow to the real thing eventually. Okay, yeah. Anyway, I know there's differences in opinion in whether we get Labour in and hold their feet to the fire, or whether we hit Labour now. I certainly don't, in good conscience, find it easy to. I certainly cannot, in good conscience, vote for Labour with their current policies. So, preparing legislation to implement improvement. DFT will prepare legislation needed to transfer relevant powers to the DFT. Okay, industry leadership, fine. It's not a huge amount being said here. You'll notice this is a theme. Lots being said, not a huge amount that necessarily is clear on what's going to change. The stuff about pulling together an expert team to address key priorities. Was like, well, kind of there is an expert. Okay, well, that's supposedly we do have that already. So, yeah. So, operations, resource-led, viable, timetable devised. So that, kind of that is what the timetable is as best as it can be. Fares, overcomplicated fare system will be reviewed to begin the process of simplifying it and introducing digital innovations. Well, I mean, okay. Drawing on the functions of the rail delivery group, which will transfer to Great British Railways in due course. Hooray! Goodbye, RDG. Excellent. Get rid of those guys. So fine, that just goes into GBR and hopefully then just never exists. So that's the first material thing we've seen, is that RTG will be absorbed by GBR. Fine. Okay. And then on industrial relations, where we're going to get... So the professionals are going to lead a team to work out what we're going to do there. Okay, fine. Labour's plan for change. Okay, right. I'm whizzing through this because I'm desperate to find something material that it says, but, So, deliver a unified and simplified rail network. Well, kind of, okay. Ending the labyrinthine array of responsible bodies, competing interests, and restrictive contractual arrangements that has undermined accountability, stifled innovation, hindered performance. I mean, ostensibly, that fine, agreed, whatever. So, leadership for Britain's railways will be GBR. GBR, arm's length body, directing mind of empowered rail industry experts, professionals, tasked by the SOS to improve the rail network. Okay, fine. Clear strategic direction set by Secretary of State, which is kind of the point, but it depends where that strategic direction sits, depends how much meddling that Secretary of State decides to do. If you leave that door open to any level of meddling, then you'll just be back where we were to start with in terms of the micromanagement challenges. So, Labour's plans in this area, aided by the forthcoming findings of the independent review of rail infrastructure and urban transport carried out by Jürgen Meyer, mean that in the future... So here's the first hint as to why maybe they're not talking about investment. I'm giving them an enormous benefit of the doubt here. Enormous benefit of the doubt, which is, we're not going to mention infrastructure because that's going to be done by Jürgen. We don't want to kind of second guess what Jürgen's going to say. I'm giving them an enormous benefit of the doubt here. Enormous benefit of the doubt. But that perhaps is why. Maybe that's the justification for it. So, reviewing the recent performance of Network Rail to identify improvements, fine, whatever. Investigation carried out by the National Audit found that 37% of all cancellations delayed were mainly due to failures caused by Network Rail and infrastructure and its management. Well, the Telegraph did this, and then the Taxpayers Alliance did it on top. Of course, a certain you're going to get a sizable percentage of failures that are on Network Rail side, because sometimes the trains fail and sometimes the track fails. Like, it's a system, so you're never going to get rid of all the infrastructure failures. Like, that's just, you're going to have a bit of a balance between infrastructure failures and train failures, because that's kind of how the railway system works. If you have a number of failures, particularly if you look at them in percentage terms, like in absolute terms, you might bring the number down, but in percentage terms, it's probably not going to change much because, stuff fails. Yeah, Howard Meow was asking where the actual research Labour did to produce this plan exists. Well, yeah, quite. There was some consultation with the unions. There was some consultation with others. These plans were being kicked around with experts, and feedback came back. So, yeah. Anyway, right. Here we go. Labour will also consider the scope for any new... Labour will also consider the scope for any large new rail infrastructure project to be required to develop a growth plan with local areas and other relevant bodies. I mean, that kind of is true now. While rail may only represent a small proportion of overall transport emissions, it has the potential to play a large part in the solution to decarbonising our transport sector by attracting more people onto our railways and making great use of rail freight. Big positive noise klaxon. This is good. This is good. Labour will set targets for modal shift to lower emissions from the transport sector. They've done it. They did it. They mentioned the incentive, the mission. That's the mission. Oh, they didn't set a number. Oh, that's the end of it. Just one sentence. Making public transport a more reliable and attractive choice can result in huge reductions in emissions from journeys. Absolutely right. Good stuff. I'm glad they're addressing it. So that is a key part. So this is positive. They have addressed the fact that there will be a modal shift target set. Will that be the driving factor in the in how the railway should deliver? Well, they aren't explicit about that. So not as high up the agenda as it should be. So I'm willing to say that some of my criticism about this lack of target might have been overblown because they do mention it once. But actually, you know what? I don't think it is, because it's mentioned once without the fact that they should be upfront and center saying this is the driving mission. Driving modal shift to rail is the driving mission, and you achieve this by making the railways better, safer, more comfortable, all the good stuff, faster, and all the good stuff. So it doesn't then say operating within a long-term strategy for services and infrastructure determined by the Secretary of State. So there'll be a long-term strategy determined by the Secretary of State. Okay, so if that long-term strategy is thou shalt deliver this much whilst achieving these key metrics, then okay. If the Secretary of State has control over what the map should look like to deliver the plan, or if electrification is part of that plan, or accessibility improvements, then that becomes a big problem. Bringing finances together into a single body, enabling it to take long-term decisions, fine. Increase patronage. A good example of how screwed up the current system is entirely an issue within DFT. Is that at the moment the funding for renewals and the funding for enhancements those piles of cash are handed over by different bits of DFT, which means that in a situation where you're doing a renewal, but actually if you just spent like 5% extra, you'd get an enormous extra benefit. Like, I don't know, delivering a traditional double junction versus an opened out modern style double junction. The latter is crap. The original is better. It just requires a little bit of additional capital investment to make it not like for like, but to put it back to how it used to be in the olden days where we had normal, proper double junctions. Good example, 25-mile-an-hour double junction in an opened-out double junction. I'm explaining. I can't draw this. You know what? I can draw this because I can go. Let me do this, and let me do this, and let me do this, and then this. Do you care about double junctions? You know what? No. I want to. Let's focus. Focus. Double. Stuff like that, renewals, enhancements. If a little bit of extra could take a renewal and take a little bit of money from the enhancements pot, but it's still a renewal and deliver a major benefit for the railway. Not possible at the moment because those two bits of DFT do not talk to each other and likely hate each other. Yes, Howard Meow is going flank protected double junction versus unsafe single lead, something along those lines. A little more to it than that. No, not a single lead versus. No, this is still a double flank, but actually. There are signaling challenges with double junction, but not so much anymore with TPWS and stuff. So, Howard Meow is asking a question. Important question, is this the right time at the early publication of this plan to commit to a modal shift target in percentage terms rather than wait for further research after G? I'm not saying that they should commit to a number necessarily at this point, actually, on modal shift. But what they should have done is elevated, saying that whatever that number is will be the number, the public transport with rail as its backbone. That modal shift will be our driving force to determine what our strategy should be. Daniel is absolutely spot on with switch diamonds if necessary for higher speed straight route, and if you have freight as well. You need switch diamonds if you've got freight, basically. Probability of this ending on time is approximately 0. We've got 11 minutes to get through. Okay, we're on page 17 of like a few more. Right, okay, so directing mind, managing competing cross-network planning and operations requirements, new organisation, new culture, dedicated single-mindedly to deliver. It shouldn't be a new organisation, they should just change Network Rail. But again, that's just words, it doesn't matter. You can say it's a new organisation, but basically you 2P everyone across exactly in the same structure they are from Network Rail. The reason I don't want to rebuild Network Rail from scratch is because Network Rail already does what it does pretty well, actually. And so taking that organisation and just rebranding it as British Rail is a far more efficient way to not lose a load of skills in shifting to a new structure. Much better to just rebrand Network Rail and retain those skills and then shape as it is. But yeah, the modal shift should be high, 25% minimum by middle of the century. But anyway, let's have a look. So, Railways Act was delivered in the first parliamentary session as a critical step to enable the full... That's a commitment that the current government haven't made, so that's good, that it'd be delivered in the first parliamentary session. That is good. And key principles underpinning the GBR, okay, passenger-focused, okay, that shouldn't... Okay, so I talked about the fact that passenger-focused in a report like this is fine, but making this the number one core principle of GBR as passenger-focused is not the right thing to do. because that immediately screws over what we need to be expanding massively, which is freight. We don't carry enough freight on our railway system, although we carry a decent amount of freight, more than some of our close competitors in Europe. It might be worth saying. Well done, Simon, by the way. Richard Hoffman, you're absolutely right about HS2. We'll get there in a minute. Yeah. Right, so fine. Long-term whole system thinking, good, fine. Empowering and devolved authorities, good. Decision-making will take place as close to local communities as possible. That is good, that's being mentioned. Bring cost and revenue together, yep, good. Track and train brought together, good, agreed. Arm's-length decision-making, managed by professional industry experts with only the most substantive decisions on services and infrastructure being agreed by the Secretary of State. Explicitly stating that, good thing. I'm glad they've said that, fine. Governance and new bodies, so Secretary of State will be passenger-in-chief. Bit weird. Again, a bit weird. Okay, if they're representing passengers, but then who's representing freight? Who's championing freight then in that situation? Again, a little bit of a misstep, I think. Okay, setting the long-term strategic direction for rail, set by the Secretary of State, will outline how the railway should deliver against clearly stated passenger objectives and the overall objective of growing rail use. So, okay, again, they have kind of alluded to the fact that the overall objective is growing rail use. That is positive. Outline role of rail in growing the economy, fine, whatever. Help to achieve climate objectives. Oh, the climate has been mentioned. Hooray! Issuing such a strategy will enable the government and the sector to make aligned decisions, best use of funding. 100% agree with this. Good. Also create a stable foundation for innovation and problem solving. Yes, actually, that is true. Innovation is good. Invention, not necessarily so good, but innovation in its real sense rather than its modern tech bro California sense. Good. Problem solving, yep, absolutely need a long-term plan to do that, not short-term stuff. For example, exploration be delivered efficiently in due course and for investments to understand the long-term outlook for the industry. Fine. Whatever. Investors, question mark, we'll get to that in a moment. Set how the industry should make the most of significant planned investment in rail and how these enhancements will be integrated with the existing, fine. So we mentioned enhancements. Okay, let's read that again. It will set out how the industry should make the most of the significant planned investment in rail. It's almost like, what, you mean this current significant investment? Our significant investment? Okay, wait a minute, that what are they talking about there? Network North? Okay, how these enhancements will be integrated with the existing network and transport system, fine. That will save time, reduce costs, and enable innovators to develop new ideas. Okay, fine, whatever. Allowing the benefits, full benefits of investment to be realised. The strategy will seek to integrate and reflect the ambitions of devolved and regional and national stakeholders in a single coherent strategy for the railways. That's kind of what we talked about in episode 190, actually, that you start with the devolved authorities and what they want out of the railway and then bring that up to the national level to ensure that that's delivered in parallel with the national plan. Good. It was published early in the new Labour government, clearly setting out the benefits that the government wants to achieve from rail. So that's good as well. Good. Clear objectives for setting clear objectives for passengers. I'm going to skip through that because fine. They do mention freight in that paragraph there, which is interesting. So freight is at least mentioned there, even though the title is for passengers. 3, approving targets for the growth of rail freight. So this is a thing. Wait a minute, what is this? Oh, okay. The role of the government. So, passenger in chief will have will set targets for the growth of rail freight. Again, not on modal share though. Here, this is just a growth target, which is okay. I mean, there are targets for rail freight growth set, but anyway, okay. So, okay, fine. Right, this is another key one. Role of devolved powers. A single director mind essential to ensuring the railway serves the passenger interest nationally. Okay. But it's also vital that national and regional governments and mayors have their power to integrate local railways with other transport modes. They need the ability to create unified transport networks that serve their cities and regions like London has with TfL. Okay, so yes, positive. Considerable land value, potentially an unused rail-owned land, for instance, that always sets red flags off. Is that, for instance, cross the line out, could be used for further railway purposes, so maybe it's valuable, so don't sell it. Okay. Which could leverage sources of private capital, and generate new income streams once. Why not keep it within the railway, like Japan does, by the way, and leverage, even if the land gets developed on, do it with buildings that you might potentially pull down in 40 years, and earn the rent for the railway from that. Become a property developer, that's fine. Japan basically runs its railways that way. And funds its railways that way. Fine, okay, good. But private capital. No, we don't need. Well, you have rent. For once, why don't we charge the private sector rent rather than the private sector charge us rent? Simon's pointing out, by the way, as our freight specialist, that point 3 is basically the situation now, so it's not particularly radical. Point 3 of what the SOS will do. Sorry, so through the sale of residential land plots with planning permission to house builders, just keep it as. Build public housing on public land owned by the railway. For goodness sake. Just missed. That's a big missed opportunity moment there, to be honest. Yeah. Secretary of State and Great British Railways could consider further devolution of stations to maximise opportunities for economic development. Not entirely to who? Well, that looks a bit of a suspect sentence there. I presume to local authorities. Like, well, no, that should definitely be a thing. Not just could. It's like that should definitely be part of the planning where local authorities want that to happen. Devolve structure and decision making. Where the rail network is integrated nationally, and governance must reflect the need to balance and integrate local commuter, regional, national, and high speed services. Oh, high speed mentioned once. There must also be a statutory role for devolved leaders in governing, managing, planning, and developing the rail network to bring decision making as close as possible to local communities. Good that that's being mentioned. Devolved leaders in Scotland, Wales, and in the combined authorities, so the kind of the city regions-ish, will have a statutory role in the rail network. National and regional transport bodies will have the ability to agree national and regional rail services. So this is more about services rather than capital investment. Not enough. Balancing ambitions of leaders in one area with those elsewhere on a network that operates across devolved boundaries is an inevitable tension, but Great British Railways will require to remain agile. Okay. Role of a passenger voice. So, very quick on this one. So, jumping forward, they're going to basically take quite a few of the things that Officer Rail and Road do, merge them with Transport Focus and the Rail Ombudsman to create a new thing, which they're going to call... What are they going to call it? Where is it? The Passenger Standards Authority. There we are. Okay. Right. Fine. And we'll just leave it at that. The role of regulation, so there we are. Safety standards and safety regulation will continue to be set independently and applied across Great Britain. The Officer Rail and Road will continue to regulate health and safety of the mainline network to fine. So I haven't mentioned RSSB there, because the RSSB really ought to be merged into British Rail. Fine. Health and Safety Executive will continue to monitor and enforce standards for all other at-work activities. Fine, yep, as is the case now. RABE will absolutely stay independent. Good. Oh, here we go. RSSB. Active Safety Standards Research Body for Great Britain's rail network. We will review its exact remit to ensure it is able to fulfil a similar role within the new model. I mean, you could just merge it in. Just merge it in. Just merge it in. Yeah. Passenger Standards and Strategic Rail Authority. Starmer being unable to reuse new Labour terminology. Wait a minute. Did I misread it? Passenger. Oh, yeah, you're teasing me. Okay, fine. So BTP obviously stays as BTP. GBR subject to the same regulators as private companies, including Environment Agency, Planning Inspectorate. Yeah, that's all fine and good. ORR will continue to make approval decisions on open access applications on the basis of... Okay, fine. So ORR is retained in that sense. Reducing waste. Okay. So I winced at this because waste is generally a good thing, but actually this section just talks about how much fragmentation costs, and you know what? That's fine. So let's just say, great magic. Rolling stock. Oh, here we go. Merge it in, David. You just merge it in. Thanks, Martha. Thank you. Rolling stock with 10-year... what's this? Wait a minute. Point 3. Simon is saying something. What's literally illegal? What's illegal? Simon, what's illegal? I missed the context for that. I've forgotten what I was talking about. Right, rolling stock. They're not doing anything with it. Leaving it as it is. They're going to continue to lease rolling stock when taking on operator contracts, but will apply the single direct demand approach to ensure that barriers to sharing rolling stock across the network that currently cause systemic delays are eliminated. That's easier said than done. Over the longer term, develop a long-term industrial strategy for rolling stock, which supports British manufacturing, innovation, and interoperability, and aligns with the wider objectives of the industry. This will seek to end the current boom and bust. You can only achieve that if you get rid of the Roscoes. And consider the best financing structures for future orders in partnership with private capital. There's the one. Nope, in the future, Roscoes will still exist because it will be in partnership with private capital. It doesn't need to be. This is PFI. It just costs more. We already know that PFI sucks. We don't need it. Get rid of it. Just have the trains in-house. So the one thing they could have said, which is, we won't be taking this forwards. Nope, they're going to continue taking this forwards, which is why there was such a... positive response to this from the Porterbrook CEO, who, in fact, I will quote the Porterbrook CEO right now. If I go to WhatsApp and see my secret special contact sending me this, make sure that none of you can see my phone. There we are. Let's just read this out, shall we? Let's just have a look. Mary Grant, CEO of rolling stock provider Porterbrook, said, a substantial investment in Britain's railway is required over the next 30 years to drive economic growth, achieve net zero, protect the natural environment and build resilience. Okay. We welcome the Labour Party's commitment to leverage private capital to help deliver its long-term strategy for rolling stock. There you go. She's happy. You know things aren't good. So, role of freight. Here's a nice big chunk on freight. Oh, no, it's 3 paragraphs. Oh, well, great. They're not saying anything other than include safeguards to ensure that freight operators continue to receive fair access to the network. Other than that, they want rail. Rail is good. We want rail to happen. Well, fine, okay. We'll bring the management of freight contracts into GBR. Well, that's kind of to be expected. Introduce a statutory duty on the organisation to promote the use of rail freight. Okay, fine. That's all very well and good, but the government needs to take the initiative to push that. That can't happen within rail. Rail isn't able to say rail isn't allowed to turn around to Waitrose and say you have to carry all your stuff by rail. The rail doesn't have that capacity. Anyway. Right, the chat. Where's the chat got? Chat, where have you gone? Is you still there? Anyway, right. So, role of open access. Open access services introduced by independent operators will remain where it adds value and capacity to the network. Well, okay, but they currently don't add value and capacity to the rail network. They currently take away value by the fact they extract revenue, and they lock out capacity by the fact that timetabling is a nightmare with open access operators. They can play an important role within a rail system, okay. Open access has a proven track record in driving competition and better passenger outcomes in countries whose services are run predominantly by public operators and who have spare capacity. Okay, yeah. Right. Just going to hold that point there. Okay, fine. Good, lovely. Innovation to grow. Right, that's another thing. Such operators can make the most of network capacity. No, they can't. Anyway, right, fine, whatever. Innovation to grow rail and drive efficiency. Unification of the rail network will drive innovation and growth. Okay, yeah. Collaboration, innovation, applies to freight, whatever, okay. New approach to industrial relations. Right, this is always an interesting one. Let's see. An absolutely failed approach to industrial relations management by the Conservatives and Labour previously as well. This is a sentence that always, this is a phrase that always winds me up. What happens to Hull Trains? Just merge them into the wider system. Like the Hull Train services are good. Those services should be run by the incumbent railway. Essentially, Labour will reset industrial relations on the railway. Reset them to when? To which decade? To which year are we resetting them? 1929, 27, 23, 1858. When's that going to be? 2021, 2019. 2012. Who knows? Obviously, there's loads of other general positive stuff. Strengthened through our New Deal for working people, which has been watered down a huge amount. Okay, good. Restore pride in working for the railways. But let's be honest. Because a new single employer. Yeah, fine. Good. Grand. Fine. I'm not going to say more than that. Labour's offer to the dedicated rail professions and workforce across the rail is clear. Your efforts and expertise are fundamental to putting our railways back on track and delivering a service to be proud of. Together we will work with you to fix this dysfunctional system and give you the freedom to deliver the service that passengers, freight, will need. Okay. Station management. Stations, which are almost wholly owned by Network Rail, will be integrated into GBR, of course. This would end the current patchwork approach where train operating companies manage many stations on behalf of Network Rail. Make it easier to make improvements to services and accessibility. Yeah, fine, good, easy win. Implementing legislative change. So, okay, in pursuit of more efficient passenger-focused rail system, so they'll transition each contract as it comes to an end and make clear that open access should continue to exist where it adds value and capacity to the network. Well, does it, though? How are we going to test that? Let's see. Within 5 years of a Labour government, the core terms of the existing contracts will have expired, and we expect they will have been transitioned into GBR. Yeah, the trouble of the current government ticking the clock is that this can now be done within a governmental term, whereas previously it couldn't. Now this looks pretty unimpressive, to be honest. Phased approach ensures a smooth transfer of operations. Fine. You know what? Fine. Labour delivers a Railways Act for England, Scotland and Wales to enable the full benefits of unified railway by achieving the following. Fine. Statutory force, transferring contracts into the new body and removing the requirement to return franchises to private sector. Yeah, that's good. So, you get rid of that. Fine. End dither and delay. End dither and delay. Isn't that a line straight from the Fat Controllers? Are we being trolled? Isn't that like the second era Thomas the Tank Engine stopped saying? He started saying, what did he say? Dither and delay, confusion and delay instead of what was the previous thing he used to say? You've been causing confusion and delay. I don't know why he went northern rather than Liverpudlian, because he was always they always had a Liverpudlian to whether it was Ringo or whether it was what was the name of the guy who took over from Ringo? Who was also quite good. Oh, no. Everyone in the chat, let me know. Confusion and delay. Thank you, Pineapple Man. Anyway, right, so there's a picture of, interestingly, a picture of a train in Northern Ireland, which is already nationalised. Interesting. And that's the end. And it's 21:05. Oh, crikey. So that is the plan. That's the plan, folks. That is the plan. But what are we going to learn from it? So the structure this is our structure that we proposed. What's the structure that's being proposed by Labour? It's not hugely different. In fact, it's remarkably similar to the current structure. We've lost the Rail Ombudsman. Actually, I left the Rail Delivery Group in, which is incorrect. Let me, to be fair to them, that's incorrect. They've got rid of them. They're gone. So we can strap those in. There we go. Let's do that, and then do this. Wait, come on now. We're gonna do this. There we are. No. There. Good, fine. They've got rid of the RTG. So fair play. The RTG is gone. We've created the Passenger Standards Authority. So that's okay. So that's there. Fine. The Roscoes are very much staying in place. Freight, to be fair, I wasn't going to do anything with it. Open access, they're retaining. And all of this lot just disappear and go up into GBR with no talk of them retaining. So key problem here is there's not really talk of the fact that there's going to be strengthened city region railway networks, which I think is really important. Also, lack of any mention of major infrastructure investment. Just an absolute lack of it. So this is a big, so, in terms of issues. So what do we think? Chat, what do we think? Let's go big face. Just tell me what you think here. So we've had some thoughts. Howard Meow is asking for a top 5 rating of this 1955 modernisation, beaching the IRP and the Williams Review. Actually, I have something for you later on, Howard. We'll get to that. Manome is saying, so basically just losing the talks and that's it. What is actually going to happen here? Exactly. I'm so glad you've joined us because that is exactly it. What's actually happening here? There's a lot of fantastic, genuinely good talk about, about changes to how we're going to decide what's happening. Simon, it risks being a wet continuation of what's going on now. Yeah, it really does. It really does. Like, the reason there are lots of problems in our railway network right now, the number one reason is a lack of long-term strategy, and they're attempting to address that. The number two reason is a lack of investment against that strategy, and there is no mention of that being solved here. Because ultimately, to deliver the modal shift, you need to invest in HS2. You need to invest in substantial expansions in capacity. This isn't cutting it. It's not cutting it. I think, so if I go back, okay, what else is everyone thinking? Are we going to have more capacity, high speeds, electrification, all this stuff? It is a little bit like rearranging deck chairs. Yeah, funny you should mention that analogy. A certain other Mr. Kazvani might share that analogy with you on something you might listen to tomorrow. Daniel Smith is saying, what will actually happen in 5 years of legal battles? What will actually happen is 5 years of legal battles and consultation with nothing actually happening, /cynicism. Well, quite. Should we develop our own trains in the UK? Well, we kind of have to. All of our trains kind of have to be developed in the UK because no other, it's a unique shape of train. Well, GB, sorry, not UK, GB. It's a unique shape of train. So everything kind of has to get developed here for us. I do think there should be a state-owned train manufacturer, by the way, but that's another story for another day, I think. Rigor mortis, it's a start, needs to flesh out the details and lay down targets and strategies, needs the investment funding built in, absolutely. It could have definitely been a lot better. Roscoe's need to go and open access needs to go as well. We need investments in, that's Railway Thinker, by the way. I hope you're enjoying your first week at work. Investments in what is good, giving local railways and cities back to council. Yeah, back to councils, local authorities, absolutely. Significant lack of drinking from the puddle. There's not enough puddle drinking going on here. Yeah, that is true. So right, let me go back to my small face. So what's what we think? So here's Keir. What's he thinking? What's in his head? He's having flashbacks to that time he ran a cyclist over. Yeah. Anyway, no. What's in his head? Who knows? Here's Louise concentrating on actually engaging in the conversation, which is good. She's paying some attention, looking very serious. And here they are, and of course in Newton Aycliffe, incidentally next to a rather nice Aurora with some substantial and meaty crash structure in the front of its train there. Yeah, it's not just a fiberglass cab. Hannah saying no thoughts, empty head. Yeah, that would pretty much cover him. Sorry, Keir. Anyway, right, fine, whatever. So they're here. The reason I put this up because they're talking to the train manufacturers, going, look, we're going to give you a long-term strategy without talking about the investment that is needed for new trains. Total lack of Absolute lack of any foresight. Like to keep these, to keep the rail industry functioning and to keep Britain moving, as this whole thing says, it's not about getting Britain moving. It's about keeping Britain moving. We need long-term strategic investment. People are asking why Louise is dressed as Peter Griffin. Let's not reduce this to a discussion of how people are dressed. Although yes, okay, fine, whatever. Really think it's been a good week at work and very busy and a good bunch of people I'm working with. I'm so glad. That's fantastic. Possibly unpopular opinion, but I think TOC regions sub-branding should be retained in some way to help distinguish services. Yeah, I think so. I think I have mixed feelings on that. Like, I don't disagree, actually. I think there should be some autonomy between the subnational transport bodies outside of Scotland and Wales, of course. Scotland and Wales absolutely keep their branding as it is. But in terms of within England, I think that, TFN services within the TFN area could have a northern bent. Services in the southwest could have a southwest bent. I like the idea of a little bit of customization within that, yeah. I did not tune into James O'Brien because I'm trying to have a day job, and someone was asked. I did get several DMs saying, please dial in and get rid of this and to talk some sense into the conversation. So, lack of investment, big problem. Another sniff is, and here's Louise. This is why Louise was wearing green, because she was wearing a lovely green suit. Let's not talk about how people are dressing. But it was the guy from Trainline here in like UK tech bro clothes. I don't know if this is actually a Trainline guy. It might be. Trainline. By the way, let's just talk. If we're going to talk about clothing, let's talk about. I need to just take us back to talk about Keir's shirt. If we're going to talk about clothing, if we are going to talk about clothing, if we're going to do this, then let's even this up, because we need to talk about Keir's shirt in this photo that we've got later on, which I'm going to put in here right now. Because we need to talk about Keir's shirt. Look look at this shirt. Do you think someone handed him this iron shirt immediately before taking the photo? I cannot have a shirt that ever retains this look of being ironed. Is it made of like plastic? It's quite something. Yeah. No, I actually think Louise's suit is pretty. It's a good suit. It's much more interesting than Keir's suit. If we're going to talk about suits, also has Keir scratched he's cut his chin while he's shaving. Anyway, sorry, Keir. Let's talk about the fact that the speech announcing this was given in the Trainline offices, shall we? Yes, let's do precisely that. Because the fact that it was delivered here is like, don't worry, Trainline, you're going to have a role. It's like, well, do Trainline need to have a role? I'm quite happy for Trainline to exist, but I also want them to basically cease to have the profits they do. Not because I care about the fact they charge £1 for tickets. I think the Trainline website is actually really good, by the way. What annoys me is that there should be a better integrated ticketing system that is, whether it's for the railways or whether it's for, okay, keep a railway one, but actually there should be one for public transport, an integrated ticketing system for public transport. This is the slightly worrying bit, that it was delivered at the Trainline offices. Is a little bit of what is the underlying attitude of Starmer and Reeves as to what the railway system is going to look like in the future. That, I think, leaving this. And what do I want to do? It's a new thing for Rail now. When we do a page turn, I want to start introducing a ratings proposals for, certainly when it's plans for the future. And so it's time to talk about the Rail Natter rating for Labour's Getting Britain Moving plan. What should it be? Let's go. I give it 2.5 out of 5 Pandrel clips. We have to do it by Pandrel clips, of course. 2.5. So I'm giving it a 50% rate, 2.5 Pandrel clip rating. I know there was nothing for us to measure it against it, but that's my rating, 2.5 Pandrel clips. So let's see what we think about. We need to go back and retrospectively. Maybe we have an episode where we go back through retrospectively and all the page turns of other reports we've done. We rate them all and see how they stack up. So there we go. Green Signals gave it 9.5 out of 10. No, of course they did. It's not a passing grade. There we go. Please explain for the non-engineers in the chat. So this. Let's go big face. This is a Pandrel clip. It holds the rail to the sleeper. There's usually 2 of them either side of a rail on a sleeper, and 4 of them on any given sleeper to hold the rail down. Both rails down on a sleeper. This is the gold Pandrel clip. Because I took a break, we've missed the golden Pandrel clip giving episode, so we need to do a retrospective one to cover all of the 100+ episodes that we've done since I last did this. 150 plus episode. So those aren't poops, those are Pandrel clips. This is a Pandrel clip. Look, Pandrel clip. Here it is. It's a Pandrel clip. Incidentally, I have an enormous box of pin badge Pandrel clips that I'll be sending to winners of the Pandrel Awards, the Golden Pandrel Clip Awards, the RailNatter Awards that we run through. We haven't talked about the ticket price guarantee. That won't be possible without genuine fare reform. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, right. Here it is. So I'll not put this back behind me. You know what? No, I won't, because I'll break everything. Right. So questions. Do shove your questions to the forbidden pretzel. Yeah, quite. Yes. No. That's the Golden Pandrel clip, and we're going to continue when we do a page turn of a new report. We're going to start rating them. It's a bit of fun, but also because if we like a report or we don't like a report. So this is kind of middling. It's right middle of the road. The first report is 50%. So it's 2.5 Pandrel clips. Anyway, right. So okay, so let me get rid of my face. So audio only people, this was chaos. Hope this is all right. Listen to the podcast on all good podcasting platforms. Thank you so much. Please do drop a little review on those platforms, because it helps. It's very good. And briefly, we were like top 20 within the top 20 of podcasts for tech podcasts in the UK, which is fun. Patreon.com/GarethDennis to support more of this happening. To those Patreon folk, there'll be more Patreon stuff going on in the future as I get back into the real world a bit more with life. So look forward to that. PayPal.me/GarethDennis for loose change and abuse. If you don't want to do a long-term subscription, a little bit of, if you've liked a particular episode, I always appreciate if you chuck a bit of penny to support it, because it helps me justify my time, which is very limited. I don't know how I do any of this, but I love doing RailNatter, so I shall continue to. When is Amphitrust coming back? Very good question. Very soon, I promise. Very, very soon. GarethDennis.co.uk/merch for the merchandise, and Gareth Dennis, including, by the way, Amphitrust mugs. If you want an Amphitrust mug to remind yourself of the glorious country of Amphitrust, and GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord for the Discord server, where the chat continues ad infinitum. For people expecting the thing, I haven't sent your objects out yet. They will be sent. I've just not had the mental capacity. You will get your objects. I know it's like, that competition was like 6 months ago, but no, I promise you'll get them. I promise. Next week's episode, it will be what this week's episode was supposed to be. We will finish the Borders Railway with maps and routes. We'll talk about what Borders Railway should look like and a bit about some background into it. So that's episode 213. That'll be next week. We need another technical episode for non-techies. Oh, okay. A suggestion for techie episode. Oh, we could do a tech... What? Yeah, okay. We haven't had one for a while, have we? Yeah. I wonder what we could do an episode on. We could derive the Kant equation, couldn't we? That could be fun. Make suggestions. Send the suggestions into the Discord server. If you're a Patreon person, you get to directly make suggestions, and I have to pay attention to them. If you're not on Patreon, then you can make suggestions, but I might not see them. Whereas if you're Patreon, I have to pay attention and attempt to do all of the suggestions you've made. I need to go back through. Rail Baltica is another one hot on my list. So anyway, and tomorrow, listen to Trash Future. It's the bonus tomorrow because I'm in it. Railways for Beginners. Oh, that'll be fun. You know what, Hannah? That's a great shout. A Railways for Beginners episode would be an absolutely terrific shout. Hannah Goodliff in the chat. A fairly regular presence. Very, very pleased to have you here, Hannah, joining us. National High Speed Network video. Yes, the National High Speed Network episode needs to come in. Yes, it does. Absolutely. Yes, so I'll be in TF. And that's all I want to say, really. Thanks so much for joining this episode. It's 18 minutes late. I'm so sorry. So I'm gonna wave. Thanks to everyone for joining. All 200 of you who are here at one point. It's been an absolute joy to have you all along. Tune in next week where we do maps and engineering and all sorts of good stuff. I have to pat for the bonus, Gareth. Yeah, absolutely. Do I have recommendations for past episodes that might be good for educating railway beginners? Bluebird. Woo. If we have a Railways for Beginners, maybe I should pick out a few. But RailNatter is categorized. There's engineering episodes that you could go into, and so there are playlists for each of the themes. So every RailNatter episode has 2 or 3, I think actually just 2 categories that it goes into, and those categories. So it covers whether if an episode's an engineering episode, it covers something like that. Then you can just click on the playlist. It's just engineering episodes, and they're all in there. Likewise for episodes with guests, they're all in a thing. So if you want all the guest episodes, they're all in there. So there are they're about like 10 different sort of themes there. Howard Meow is asking why I don't like Scottish decarbonisation strategy, discontinuous electrification. That's why. Anyway, right, enough of this. Lovelies, you take good care of yourselves. Signal heads, ballast shoulders, knees, and switch toes. What? Simon's entertaining us all. Right, okay, marvellous. Hit like before we disappear. Yeah. And you know, they might be post-credit scenes. You know, I couldn't possibly say. Cheerio! So there is one more thing I wanted to say, which is, look at this. This is the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority mayoral election literature that has not been sent out to everyone who gets to vote tomorrow. Good grief. There's a load of, like, we're turning off. Wait a minute. We need desk cam, don't we? So there's a load of, there we are. There's a load of, like, the bump here. That's whatever. But then let's talk about who's in here. So I love this so much. So we have the Greens that are just Kevin from Colburn, fine. We have the Tories, whatever the hell that is. It's just chaos and anarchy, and he's awful, and he wants to privatise Scarborough, which is strange. We have to talk about Keith Tordoff. Here's Keith. In fact, let's do this. Let's go big face and hold up Keith. Here's Keith. Here he is. This is a guy who got kicked out of the Yorkshire Party for, and I just want to lay this out very clearly. For his policy of giving everyone free chickens. So that's the quality of candidate we have facing us in this election. We have literal landed gentry of Felicity Cunliffe Lister, who lives in a stately home. She's the owner of Swinton Park. It's a castle. She owns a castle. We have the Five Lives David Skaith, and we have Paul Haslam, who is an ex-Tory. He quit the Tory party so he could run against the incumbent Tories. So fantastic, isn't that? You know, a really wonderful bit of literature there for us to look forward to. Absolutely.